in 2011, there was the first 3D printer. My friend David brought it into the fabrication shop that I used to build tube amps in. And he was calibrating it by printing silly stuff like cupcakes. It was called a cupcake printer. And one day he was just like, oh, I'm just gonna print a sphere. And I was like, well, it looks like trash, but it sounds awesome. Because you get all these beautiful arpeggios every time the motor changes speed, and it changes speed a lot. There's a 3D printer, and it has 3 contact mics on it, and it goes into this sound mixer, which goes to that computer, and then it gets piped to all these speakers that are in the room, on the floor, and on the stands. There's 16 of them, and then there's 37 more on the walls. There's some software that takes the code that is used by the printer to print an object, and then uses that as the directions to make the sound move across all these speakers. The motors in a 3D printer are called stepper motors, and there's 3 of them, so you can do 3-voiced harmony because you can control the pitch of each motor, and so I call it a stepper choir. I pretty quickly realized that I wasn't particularly interested in making traditional music that just sounded weird because it was played on a printer. I'm more interested in trying to compose on the terms of the machine. You compose by making shapes. This trapezoid thing sounds very regular. This sphere thing sounds very arpeggiated. This other sphere thing becomes slightly more random, and then there's basically an inverted, smaller version of the bottom part on the top to have kind of a coda. Recording this project has been really difficult because not everyone has even 8 speakers, right? Like, that's kind of a lot to ask from the regular listener. A big part of the project is actually making the infrastructure of 3D printing not about making objects, but making objects audible, right? So by having the shape of the print influence the way the sound moves in this 3D space made by all these speakers, this like 3D auditory space, you can sort of get a sense of what it's printing. And so in that sense, you can close your eyes, listen to an entire print from it starting at the floor, like it's starting on the bottom of the print bed, and then going all the way up in the roof at the end of the print, and get a sense of the shape that it was printing. So it's more about trying to misuse the tools of 3D printing to put it in dialogue with all these other senses and all these other type of purposes, musical composition, auditory perception, and so on, rather than making plastic toys.